Bonjour à tous et bienvenue pour cette troisième et dernière conférence du Forum Digital Hydrogen Business for Climate. On va donc parler de la coopération franco-allemande dans l'hydrogène. On a toujours considéré que le couple franco-allemand était le moteur de l'Europe. Apparemment, c'est la même chose qui concerne l'hydrogène. Et pendant ces 2 heures, nous allons avoir des acteurs français et allemands, bien sûr, dans différents domaines, mobilité et industrie notamment. Mais d'abord, j'aimerais donner la parole à Madame la Présidente de Région,
Give the floor to Marie-Guy Dufay, our president.
Oui, bonjour.
Cette coopération franco-allemande, elle s'applique déjà au niveau des territoires, puisque vous avez une coopération initiée notamment avec la Rhénanie-Palatinate.
Oui, je pense que l'Allemagne aujourd'hui est l'exemple. L'Allemagne nous tire par le haut.
Germany leads us, and it's very interesting to go further into our cooperation because the huge investment of France today on hydrogen came after the German investment. I think Germany showed us the way. At region level, we have cooperation with the Rhineland-Palatinate land, and the hydrogen question is the agenda of this cooperation, but we also work with Baden-Württemberg with a very specific space called Suera. It's in the heart of Europe. We've got 48 alpine regions, over 7 countries, and the development of hydrogen is a priority for this Suera cooperation. So beyond what we can do with Rhineland-Palatinate, there's also several cooperations which are possible. And today, the most concrete example is to participate into an initiative which was launched by Europe through a call for tender. The question is to create a corridor, zero carbon emission from the north to the south to Spain, and our territories will be crossed by this corridor. And on this corridor, we would have several hydrogen filling stations installed for the AGVs and for refrigerated trucks, such as in Switzerland. I think the cooperation is a leader, and we must stay close to it. We have clusters on the territories with cooperations with countries such as Germany. I would like to say also, I've got some slight micro-cuts. I would like to add that there is an example of a cooperation Franco-German and Franco-European. We're very proud of it. The Rougeot, the company, will create within the territory of Belfort a certification institute for tanks in Europe. So here we're going to have a reference institute, an international reference institute here in the Territoire de Belfort, on our territory. Of course, there are industries here, global industries, European-wide industry. I think, yes, with PSA and Faurecia, we do have these type of industries. As president of the region Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, I am there to support these industries. They're the players. We talked about the fuel cell. We are talking about the hydrogen Airbus. It's up to the main companies to push for projects, and the region will be there with them without hesitation. Thank you, Madame Dufay, for your participation. So we were talking about Rhineland-Palatinate. We received a video in French from the economy minister, Mr. Volker.
Je vous félicite d'avoir choisi un des sujets les plus importants pour notre développement industriel. l'hydrogène est très important pour la transition énergétique. Et cette transition énergétique est fondamentale pour le futur industriel de notre pays.
So, Mr. Wissing says that the future of our countries is linked to the development of H2 concerning chemistry and certain specific materials production. These industries need a lot of power. Very happy that this Salon de l'hydrogène is both Franco-German and European. Several experts from several areas will share their vision and ideas. And the experts have been well chosen, and I hope you will have interesting exchanges, and I'm sure that it will be fruitful for the development of both our countries. For our government, this Franco-German cooperation are very important. Personally, I am sure that this cooperation will help us to go forward quickly and also to have a role on the industrial scene in Europe and in the world. So I'm happy to be part via this small video, this virtual welcome. I'm very interested to follow your various discussions and the results of these conferences. Have a good day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Mr. Wissing, for this message in French. So we are now welcoming Mr. Grüttler, who is a European MEP. There was an ambition plan launched, which was necessary. We can say that Europe was a driver in the development of hydrogen in the member states. European hydrogen strategy was presented by the relevant commissioner. Thierry Breton, the European Commissioner in charge of industry and internal market, also presented it. And this is in the framework of the 2050 goal to have zero emission by that date. Hydrogen is an excellent vector, and which is why we wanted to promote it to replace the carbonated energies, fossil energies. So it's very virtuous. At European level, we thought that hydrogen would be will need 50 billion euros investment, with creating 1 million new jobs. So it's necessary for us to invest in this project, and I'm very happy to be here in Belfort for this forum in the Bourgogne-Franche-Comté region. And round of applause for these regions for this initiative, because clearly it's been a global valley for energies for the last 150 years. I think it's important that for us we can show what we can do, apply a European policy, and also promote important development. Is the tandem going to be a driver in Europe? As for lots of things, the Franco-German couple or tandem is a driver. We don't always have the solution, but we have discussions. We don't always agree, but that's how you go ahead. There are different analyses at government level to see how do we see tomorrow. In France, we're more on to a local generation at the scale of a town, and whereas in Germany they think more big network. Would they favor production of hydrogen in the Maghreb or in Ukraine with big infrastructures to transport the hydrogen to our countries? So we have different views. We're talking about the purple hydrogen. It's a game of color. So let's explain what, so we know what grey hydrogen, we don't want it anymore, it's a bad one. It's 11 million tons used per year in the industry in Europe, and it's generated from natural gas, and it gives CO2. We have the green hydrogen, which has been produced from renewable energies. Then we have the purple one, which is going to be produced from the nuclear power plants, which doesn't release any CO2. It's a decarbonated hydrogen. So the work of the Commission is to say, okay, for renewable and decarbonated hydrogen generation, grey hydrogen should disappear fairly quickly. Thank you. You will stay with us for the entire conference, and we'll see you again. Let's go to the first part. We're talking about the hydrogen-powered train.
Et on va retrouver deux interlocuteurs.
We will have two speakers, Yannick Leguet for Alstom and Jan Wegener for the NOW agency. So, Yannick, good morning. So we're going to talk about the Coradia. It's a train that was launched in 2018, the first in the world with the French technology applied and used in Germany. Thank you for inviting me here and to this major event. It's an opportunity for me to tell us about what we did. The story of the hydrogen at Alstom started in 2012 when people started to work on the idea of a first hydrogen-powered train. So in Germany, we had the first blueprint. It's a diesel train. The blueprint is a diesel train. So it was produced at 1,000 trains were produced in Germany. Our engineer started to think post-diesel era. So in Tarbes, we have the teams working on this, and we wanted to transform that train into a hydrogen train, and the engine was developed there in that region. In September 2014, the Lower Saxony government and Linde and Alstom created a partnership to create this project. So the milestones of this project were first to present 2 years later the first train, which was done in September 2016, and also the first commercially viable train in 2018. That was the dawn. So it's the first train, a passenger train, to be on the rails, and it was used between two towns in Germany in the Hamburg region, and it was very successful. The first implementation of this train came at a time where the hydrogen economy started to provoke interest in the world. And it was very interesting to be part of the test, and it was a big success in the media. And this train has done 180,000 kilometers as a working train. So these trains were inserted into a normal commercial service. So people on the train didn't know what powered it, except that it was silent and they could see steam coming out. So it was a success. There's been no problems, no safety alarm. So this train, after the 18 months of test, was taken out of service and was sent to the Netherlands for further tests. The Netherlands are also would also like to buy this train, and it needs to be certificated in that country, and also that's the case also in Austria. Commercially, this train has been ordered, 14 trains have been ordered by Lower Saxony, and others have been ordered, up to 41 being manufactured, which are going to be in service next year, so in 2022. That's what we call a success story. It is. It's a trend that is the answer to the requirements of these short German lines, which are very successful. It can take about 150 passengers, so it is a success story. We're ahead very clearly as compared to our competitors, because we were followed by a number of our competitors on the hydrogen market. And I'd like to say that all the rail manufacturers have started to design hydrogen trains. I suggest that we see a video of this train, and we will see you after this.
Yannick Leguet, peut-être un petit complément par rapport au...
Yannick Leguet, can you tell us a bit more?
Oui, donc là vous avez vu, on va dire les deux circulations.
The two trains, one in Germany, the blue train.
Les images que vous avez vues avec
the pictures you saw with the red train is the newer Austrian train. So these trains will be on the rails in several other countries in the world, because a lot of countries have contacted us to experiment on this train. They have all the safety certificates in Germany and Austria. So this means a lot of studies for us for safety and demonstration for the German and Austrian authorities. We had to demonstrate the safety of that train. European MEP, the MEP is going to tell us about this first try. We're very proud in Europe to have this first European project born in Germany, ordered by the Länder and ordered by the French region. I think it's a real success story for passengers transport. I wanted to ask Mr. Leguet about the next step, about the hydrogen. Hydrogen is going to be applied to industry, also for heavy transportation, and the freight trains are the heaviest type of transport. We're going to have in Switzerland, we have to have freight trains in Switzerland as well. So Alstom is working on trains, on hybrid locomotives, on hybrid engines. How can we develop this project with local communities, local authorities, with also international players? Yannick, can you reply to this question right now, or should we wait? I'm going to try Obviously, this new project is pretty confidential still. We are working on it. We have asked for grants and for fundings. We asked the region for this type of subvention. It's the same as for the passenger trains. So we're working on it. What you must remember, though, is if we compare the difficulties we encountered with the passenger trains and the freight trains. Let's take passenger trains. It's a huge advantage. A train represents 200 kilos of hydrogen. A train is used for 30 years every day. So if we want to reduce the cost of hydrogen by mass producing it, and obviously decarbonated hydrogen, whichever color it is, if we want to reduce the cost, we're going to have to produce it massively. Regional trains is an answer to this, because we can then create some production sites. 2 tons of hydrogen will be necessary for the trains. So if we want to launch a hydrogen economy, we need to have more than cars, because cars can be refilled a bit everywhere, whereas a train goes back to its depot every evening and can be refilled then. So that we will be able to have other uses for these refueling stations, not only for trains. We can then create a hub for hydrogen around the rail yard to attract, let's say, buses, taxis, and other types of vehicles. It's a very important point. Concerning the freight trains, the refueling is rather different. The train is going to go along a corridor and will need refueling points somewhere else. Madame Dufay is chipping in. We can hear you. I don't want to interrupt. I just wanted to reply to Mr. Gutler afterwards. So we will do that later, quickly. So, Mr. Gutler, I'm going to be quick. So concerning the passenger train, or the freight train rather, we will need refueling stations along the way. It's again the chicken and egg situation. If you don't have several refueling stations for a train on its route, it's difficult. We are thinking about how to refuel the train. Still, it's confidential, so I will not expand on this here. So, but clearly, regional passenger transport is very good for the hydrogen in the future. And that's an important point for the hydrogen economy. Madame Dufay, very quickly, you wanted to ask a question and you wanted to reply to Mr. Grudler. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Madame Dufay? Yes. So we apparently have some communication problem. Yes or no? I just wanted to say that orders of trains, passenger train orders in France, haven't been finalized because Mr. Grudler is very ambitious and he says, oh, it's done, and now we have to consider the freight trains. However, passenger trains is still in the pipeline. Only Bourgogne-Franche-Comté in France have asked the Assembly to vote an order to oust them. This order will have to be concrete in 3 other regions, but it's not finished. So this process is still ongoing. Jan Wegener from NOW agency. Is he with us? Yes.
Alors, NOV donc est un organisme
so
qui finance des projets de recherche.
is
Qu'en est-il par rapport
funds, research. So what is the status in Germany at the moment?
D'abord, merci de l'invitation.
Thank you to have me here. Some projects are ongoing. So the trend that we saw in the video is also part of our ministry of it's covered by our grant. There are other projects, research projects, and the goal is not really to convert a diesel train, but to develop a modular traction system between fuel cell and a traditional battery. And concerning these trains, we are really thinking about refueling projects. We are very proud and happy with the results. I think I would like Yannick Leguet. Could Yannick stop his video? Thank you, Yann, for your patience.
Oui, donc pour notre ministère, donc
so for us,
en tant qu'NOV, on travaille
as NOW, we work mostly for digital transport infrastructure for the ministry. It's a strategic goal.
De vraiment, s'approvisionner ou
the goal of having refueling stations for the trains is a strategic goal. Simply for the reduction of greenhouse gases and the noise. We don't have many choices on the lines that are not electrified. Hydrogen is, of course, something that we have supported for over 10 years now, and we're going to continue. We're a bit late on this first sequence, and I can see that the hydrogen train has a lot of interest. Are there any questions in the chat?
Alors, une question pour 100 km, quelle est la consommation?
So for 100 kilometers, how much hydrogen does a train consume? I think it's a question for Yannick Leguet.
Oui, la consommation, ça va être un peu comme sur votre voiture.
The consumption is really like your car. It depends how you drive. Is it on flat or is it going up a mountain? Average, let's say average. So for a train as we saw, it's about 26 kilometers for 100 kilometers. For Regulis is the train that we are talking about. We're going to be more or less around 35, 40 kilos, but this train is heavier.
Merci. Emeline, est-ce qu'on a une autre question?
Do we have another question?
Alors, la durée de vie en fait de l'ensemble.
So the lifetime of the normal battery and fuel cell against this normal diesel train. Still for Yannick.
C'est un sujet qui aujourd'hui est en perpétuelle évolution.
This is in constant evolution. So on the power chain, a hydrogen train is an electrical train. So we've got batteries, converters, etc. We also have a fuel cell. So if we talk about the power chain, the traction chain, apart from the fuel cell, which will need to be maintained and to replace the membranes, etc., trains today are designed to run for 30 years. So what everybody is working on, academics or researchers, is to extend the lifetime of the membrane to then extend the maintenance and the replacement of these membranes. It's something that we monitor very closely. So the type of membrane, the lifetime are real important stakes. I think we are still waiting for the answers from the suppliers. This is the end of this first sequence for about trains.
I switch to English now. We have several speakers. So Jan Wegener from NOV organism in Germany is still with us. I welcome also Lars-Peter Thiessen from Opel brand within the group PSA. From France, we have Jean-Luc Brossard for the French automotive industry. We also have online for Plasticonium Julien Etienne, and for Elring Klinger company we have Armin Dies. Hello everybody. First I would like to start with you, Jan Wegener, because at the beginning we have mentioned the battery alliance. It was the first step of a cooperation between France and Germany, of course. Jan?
Yeah, sure. We are seeing the same thing happening for hydrogen and fuel cells right now. I mean, in the past, of course, there has been there've been a lot of points of contact between the different ministries, but with the important project of common European interest that we are about to see, in the next few years, I guess the Franco-German cooperation is going to intensify even more, also in the field of hydrogen and fuel cells. We will see we have seen the call for interests in Germany today. So it's been published today. Germany is kind of a laggard here. The French administration was a lot faster, but we are in intense contact with the other administration to really get this value chain, this European value chain, running, based on French and German industrial companies and efforts.
Thank you for this first comment. Jan, I would like to switch to Jean-Luc Brossard from the French automotive industry. So, yes, the Battery Alliance becomes a reality with projects in France, but now the good news is that we have the same alliance for hydrogen. Jean-Luc, can you hear us?
Yes, hello everyone. So there is the same alliance, and as you know, there is a European Clean Hydrogen Alliance also in now for hydrogen. So we are working also on the way to build more projects and to have answers to the EPCI, so important project for common European interest. And we begin this work first with Germany, but not only. In fact, we make matchmaking between French and German companies after high-level meetings with our president Emmanuel Macron and also the Chancellor Angela Merkel in October, and then we have some other meetings until the end of the year, and the last one was the 13th of November, if I remember well. But we also initiate activities also with Italy in order to involve all the countries in Europe. But we know that a big alliance between France and Germany is very important to develop a European strategy.
Thank you. I would like to welcome now Lars-Peter Thiessen from Opel. Lars-Peter, can you hear us?
Yes, very well.
I have to mention that we already met before some years ago. Opel was organizing a hydrogen tour with Zafira-based prototype, and I was there as a journalist in Paris, but I didn't know at that time that we had to meet again. So hello, warm hello from Belfort here in France. So are you happy at Opel to see this alliance in the field of hydrogen?
Yes, we are very happy about this. We think that IPCEIs are a powerful measure to promote key technologies in Europe. And as you already mentioned, the IPCEI on batteries, there we play a key role with the joint venture between Group PSA, Opel and Total Saft on the production of batteries. We will build the biggest battery cell plant here in Germany, in Kaiserslautern, which will be a true gigafactory, I should say, able to supply 500,000 vehicles per year with battery cells. And that means that we will transfer a significant amount of the electric vehicle value from Asia to Europe. And therefore, we strongly appreciate also the initiative on an IPCEI on hydrogen as well, however, with another focus there. The major remaining challenge for the OEM in terms of fuel cell electric vehicles is to bring down cost, total cost of ownership, basically. And the key enabler for that is volume. So we need to get to volume, and we need to create this volume as quickly as possible. So in other terms, the ramp-up phase, the transition from small fleets up to volume production, this is critical. And this is where the IPCEI on hydrogen comes into play, because we know that customer interest in fuel cell electric vehicles, and in particular fleet customer interest in light commercial vehicles that we are developing, is already huge today, but the costs are still too high for these customers given regular funding levels. So the IPCEI on hydrogen, with its anticipated high funding rates for customers, is in our view somehow indispensable to enable the transition to mass market for fuel cell electric vehicles.
Thank you, Lars Peter. I get back to now Jean-Luc Brossard from the French automotive industry. You're going to mention now a French initiative called Rainbow Unicorn. Can you please tell us about this project?
Yeah, in fact, in France, we define that in terms of mobility, there is three major advantages for vehicles with hydrogen. So the first one is the way to go to zero emissions. The second one is a quick charging possibility. And the third one is a higher range. So for this, we consider that there is a part of the market for three main segments. The first one is for light commercial vehicles, the second one for buses, and the third one for EV trucks with intensive use. And it is very important to develop this because, as said last Peter, what is important is to bring down the costs. And for that, we need high volumes. And light commercial vehicles is an opportunity to have high volumes in Europe. And what we have done is to propose to have a brick of mobility for the EPCEI, starting for the refueling starting stations, involving also chemicals industry, involving system suppliers, Plastic Omnium, like Faurecia, and so on. And bringing use for mobility, that means LCV vehicles coming from the OEMs, can be PSA and as Opel, and that also as Peugeot has said last Peter, but it can be also Renault, that you understand that yesterday Renault announced that they will produce hydrogens like commercial vehicles. It can be also Volkswagen and Mercedes. And we are working in order to bring to the final operators. That means post industries, DHL, and so on.
So it's a holistic approach
to answer to the different usage. So what we wanted with Rainbow Unicorn is to have this break and the possibility to propose, in fact, in 20 major cities in Europe, to have more than 100,000 light commercial vehicles on the road. And that means that we can save nearly 1 billion tons per year of CO2, but we also can use green hydrogen produced at 20 or 40,000 tons per year. And it is a very important consumption of green hydrogen because, as we know, we want to have low environmental footprint mobility. That means that the energy has to be decarbonized.
Okay, that's great. So this is a project that could be interesting for Germany, but maybe some other countries.
as I said before, we already see many countries, and there are some territories who are very interested with this action. So we are discussing with Germany, but also Italy, but also Spain and Netherlands and Belgium. So it is under building, and we know that there is many possibilities. And but in terms of OEM and main suppliers, the main suppliers and the main OEM are in France, in Germany, and in Italy.
Thank you. We get back now to Lars-Peter Thiessen from Opel. So in Rüsselsheim, you're working for the entire PSA group to prepare the future LCVs powered by hydrogen.
Yes, exactly. This is the case. So we have developed fuel cell electric vehicle now for more than 20 years. And as you mentioned, we two met before. This was, by the way, this was in May 2004 when we did a 10,000 kilometer drive. We call them fuel cell marathon from the North Cape to the most western point in Europe, the Cabo da Roca in Portugal. And at this point in time, the biggest challenge was we had to carry our own refueling station with us. So, but based on this 20 years of experience, in fact, the PSA's Global Center of Competence for Hydrogen and Fuel Cell is located at Opel in Germany. And our strategic focus today is on the total cost of ownership of this technology. And this means that we will be focusing as a first step on fleet customers, so B2B business. And this is why we develop a fuel cell light commercial vehicle, as you mentioned, providing maximum customer value in terms of usability of the vehicle, meaning the same kind of payload as a ordinary diesel version, or the same kind of volume space in the back of the vehicle. It will be an Opel Vivaro, but also the derivatives of Peugeot and Citroën. To be deployed as a fleet at the end of this year, starting next year, as I said, selected B2B customers using, of course, the existing hydrogen refueling station network where possible. However, we don't want to bring with that just another demo onto the road. It rather serves to find economical and technological ways to roll out this technology in volumes as soon as possible.
Thank you. So now I would like to introduce Julien Etienne from Plasticonium and Armin Dies from Hellring-Klinger. So one is the French company, the other one is a German one, and there is an alliance. Hello, Julien. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So we're going to roll a video, and you will be speaking over. So Plasticonium is involved, have been involved for years in the field of hydrogen.
Yeah, that's correct. We're a tier one supplier. We've been for 75 years, and as you mentioned, we believe in hydrogen as a solution for future mobility. We believe hydrogen will bring value to customer, long driving range, all of this with zero CO2 emission. So we have invested quite heavily since 2015, created R&D centers in Europe and China. And today we are pretty much the only tier one supplier to offer the full onboard hydrogen chain. We have certified 700 bar vessels. EKPO joint venture brings the stack, and PO develops and manufactures the full system. Starting manufacturing this year to deliver the first contract in our industrial plant in Belgium, and we will keep the investment strong over the years to strengthen our leadership position on hydrogen.
So that's great. We're going to see now some selected pictures. At the beginning of the story, it was about the tanks, hydrogen tanks, but then you enlarge your skills in the field of hydrogen.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we are the leader on fuel storage in the vehicle, so it was quite natural that we started to manufacture storage solutions, but really our idea is to be in charge of the full chain, of the onboard system for hydrogen. So through the joint venture that was announced at the end of last year with Elring-Klinger, we have a chance to offer a state-of-the-art industrialized stack, and we want also to have the hand on the development and manufacturing of full fuel cell system. At first for commercial vehicles, as Jean-Luc said, we believe this is where the market is going to start. But we want also to be ready for the ramp up of volume for passenger cars. So through this Franco-German cooperation, we believe that we're creating a strong European champion on the component side of the value chain to support the development of the first vehicles that will come to market. I agree fully with Lars Peter. We have a competitiveness topic here, and we need to grow in volume. The way to grow in volume, it's a virtuous circle. The way to grow in volume will be to have vehicles on the road more and more, as many as possible. But in order to have vehicles on the road, especially for commercial applications, we have to have credible TCO, and therefore we need to have a competitive solution. And for us, the way to develop this was really to ally and to boost the go-to-market and the capability of European players to go to market, and not for the OEMs not to rely on Asian technology, which is developing right now and enjoying some volume today. So Elring-Klinger and PO believe that by getting together, we will be able to offer industrialized and competitive solutions for hydrogen.
Thank you. On the German side now, I'd like to welcome Armin Dies from Elring-Klinger. Hello, Armin, can you hear us?
Hello, thank you. I hear you very good.
Okay,
it's a pleasure to participate in this roundtable. Thank you for invitation.
Our pleasure, of course. So you have 20 years of experience in the field of fuel cell, hydrogen fuel cells. We're going to roll a video and you will be able to make a voice over. So tell us please about your expertise. How did the story start?
Yeah, so 20 years ago we started with the first bipolar plate development. So the motivation was very clear from our point of view. So we have technologically similar processes as with our conventional processes. And we saw in a very early stage that, and this is typical for the automotive industry and the supplier industry in Europe, that we had a dependency of 90% of the combustion engine. So we need to change the product portfolio in regards to e-mobility and fuel cells as well. So actually, we are a company with 10,000 people worldwide and a turnover of 1.7 billion euros. And we are very engaged in the field of battery technology and especially in the field of fuel cell technology. I think when we look to our stack technology, one of the main differences to a lot of competitors, maybe with a university background or whatever, is that from the first scratch, we developed our components and we developed our stack together with industrialization and with our own tooling. So this means the aspects of tooling, stable processes, and automotive processes are recognized during the whole development in our stack technology.
That's great. So in 1 second, we're going to see some pictures from the fuel cells you're working on, because you have several clients and you're addressing several markets of mobility.
Yeah. So I would like to underline exactly what Mr. Thiessen said earlier. We need to come up in scaling, in scales to reduce cost for components and for stacks. And one part of our strategy is to have a modular stack concept with two main stack platforms to serve different markets with one stack platform. For example, we have our so-called NM5 and our NM12 stack platform. And with those two platforms, we can serve market demands from 10 kilowatt to 200 kilowatt. This brings us in a very broad field of applications.
Thank you. I would like to get back to Julien Etienne. How did the automotive industry, how did the customer react when they learned about this alliance between Plasticonium and ElringKlinger?
I think there's very positive reaction. I think the involvement of major tier one suppliers since 2015-16 has been in hydrogen has been welcomed by the OEMs who realized they had support from their let's say usual partners in this new technology. There's been a very positive reaction to the announcement of EKPO because there's a need for strong automotive players covering the full component chain and the full hydrogen chain on board. So in the last 2 months, we've had a lot of interest from OEMs who might be at quite early stage, might not be as advanced in developing hydrogen solution as Opel, for instance, and who are looking for strong partners to bring a turnkey one-stop shop solution for them to create a range or to test the technology. So I really believe that what we're doing as an industry in Europe and specifically EKPO and PO, I really believe that this is helping the OEMs and the industry to speed up, to accelerate in the deployment of technology.
Thank you. I would like now to get back to Armin Dies. So maybe can you please tell us about the contracts with OEMs? I heard about manufacturers of buses or heavy-duty mobility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we see, let's say, very different markets worldwide, globally, mainly in Asia and in Europe here. So we have different kind of customer and, let's say, corporations worldwide with that. So in Europe, we see a very strong driver of the fuel cell market in the heavy duty, medium duty and light duty market, in the commercial vehicle market, because everybody knows in the second half of this decade, we have the CO2 regulations which have to be fulfilled, the fleet regulations, and therefore we need new concepts, and we need, from our point of view, hydrogen for driving especially commercial vehicles. So what we did actually is we will have,
maybe a customer is calling you.
Yeah, yeah. We did together in the H2Hall project the cooperation with VDL and DAF and the company Colrid, who will use these vehicles at the end. Within this year, we will build up the first 2 trucks together with our partners, and they will be on the road end of this year, early next year, and will be in service then. So for us, it's a really interesting thing because we serve this project with a modular concept of a fuel cell system, which has a power of 50 kilowatt per module. And depending on the power demand of the vehicle, we can add 2, 3, or 4 of these systems. So this gives us very fast scaling effects in our production of these systems. And we think with this system, we can as well serve other areas than only commercial vehicle. We have customers as well in the rail area and in the maritime area and the ship area. For example, ferries are as well a very interesting field for using hydrogen.
Thank you. So time is running fast. I'm going to ask now if I have some questions on the chat with Emeline Conversé from the cluster Vehicle du Futur. Yeah, question for Lars Peter from Opel. Okay, so what is the question? Okay, it's about trucks. So there is a collaboration between Volvo and Daimler for H2 trucks. And the question is, again? Okay, so do you see any collaborations between OEMs in the field of hydrogen, whether it's for trucks or in other mobility segments? The question is addressed for you. I don't know why, but by the way.
No problem for that. So yes, in terms of collaboration, I need to say that we appreciate competition because we think this is a key measure to bring down cost. So also, you mentioned already today the announcement yesterday, or Jean-Luc, I think, mentioned the announcement by Renault. And of course, sometimes
with Plug Power,
competition.
Yes.
Yeah, Renault and Plug Power, yes. Of course, sometimes competition is uncomfortable, but as we all know, it is the key enabler to bring things forward. So in this case, for example, it's to create volume, it's to bring down cost, as I mentioned, of components, and it is also to better utilize existing hydrogen stations.
Okay, so do we have other questions, Emeline? Okay, so the question is, above meetings on both sides, France and Germany, are there any concrete projects or applications underway? Okay, don't be shy, guys. The question is for anyone, by the way. Okay.
I think from PO and Rinklinger, obviously, but that's more of a kind of a private initiative. But I think that's a good example of cooperation that we can imagine following the type of matchmaking activity that we have all been taking part in, as Jean-Luc mentioned. I don't know, Jean-Luc, if there is anything specifically official yet, but I don't believe so.
No, I think we have two examples. So one is a KPO. It is a work together from Germany and French companies, and the other one is Opel. As said last Peter, the Vivaro will use also Faurecia tanks or Symbio fuel cells. So there is some cooperation between French and Germany already. And what we are working is to make more cooperations. And today is just to have contacts between companies in order to try to bring big projects together.
Okay, so I would like to.
The better example is Plastic Omnium and Rinklinger.
Thank you, Jean-Luc.
So from Rinklinger's side, it's not only Plastic Omnium, it's also Airbus. I think we will later on.
Yes, we'll mention this just after. I would like to hear from the European Deputy, Christophe Grudler. He wanted to say one word.
Yeah, just one word. It's a lot of very good projects that are talking today. The main problem is the storage of hydrogen, because hydrogen needs a lot of volume, and if you succeed in storage, all will be very good after that. And there is two kinds of hydrogen. You have the hydrogen in the form of gas, which needs a lot of place, and you have also liquid hydrogen, which is used, for example, for launching satellites in space. And I think about your question, between Germany and France, maybe it will be space and sky. We will be the good way for liquid hydrogen. I was with Commissioner Breton Tuesday in Brussels for the big space conference, and we explained that we will have a new alliance for the launcher of satellites. And France and Germany are very in advance in the space sector. And I'm sure there will be a lot of companies who will work together in this topic to have liquid hydrogen. Of course, we have Air Liquide with very in advance, but a lot of different companies are working on liquid hydrogen, and I think it will be a good way.
Okay, so I was told that one of the speakers that we'll hear at the end of the conference wanted to ask one question. So can you please tell me in my ear, what is the question? Okay, so it's a question about Rainbow Unicorn project. So how do you source, how do you make sure that you have some green hydrogen to power the vehicles? If I have well understood the question. Jean-Luc, are you still there?
Yeah, yes, I'm still there. Now, what I can say is, if we want to decarbonize the mobility, we need green hydrogen. So it is the fact that we are working together with, in France, what we call Comité Stratégique des Nouveaux Systèmes Énergétiques. That means with the energeticians, in order to be sure to have the possibility to have green hydrogen at our pumps. But it would be the way of working. I think it is the European Commission to modify also the what we call the RED II directive in order to be sure that our energy will be decarbonized.
Okay, so thank you for this very rich session about road mobility. We carry on now with hydrogen planes. Going to discuss on that topic with Julien Etienne from Plastic Omnium and Jan Wegener from NOV. So Julien, you're still with us. We're talking about the plane of the future, hydrogen powered. And the good news for you now, since there's been an alliance with Elring-Klinger, that you're going to address this mobility market with Airbus.
That's correct. I think Armin Ditz will tell us more precisely about it.
Armin is welcome.
We are very proud. Pardon?
Oh, okay, please. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we are very proud to be cooperating with Airbus. I think it's a testimony to the quality of the work and the products that Armin and his team have been developing for the last 20 years. For me, aerospace is, along with railway, an incredible testing ground with a requirement for safety and quality and reliability that will obviously create value for future products on road mobility. But maybe Armin can tell us more about it.
Yes, of course, because Airbus has chosen the technology from Elring-Klinger for the fuel cell.
Yeah, we are proud of that. So, yeah, how did we get in this joint venture? So Airbus did, of course, a lot of analysis and compared worldwide global technologies in the field of hydrogen and fuel cell stacks. And I think the requirements for aircrafts are slightly different than requirements for passenger cars in the automotive area. We are looking very much with a high priority on the cost situation as well. And in the aircraft area, they are looking for special technical advantages like power density, like reliability as well. The development roadmaps have a different scale than in automotive. So for us, this project is really interesting because we gain a view into the fuel cell future within this project, because we will develop together with Airbus in this joint venture fuel cell technologies, which will be the generation after the next generation, let's say, for automotive sector. So this is really interesting for us. And I think especially power density, weight and reliability beside efficiency are the main topics in this development. when we look to the different markets, efficiency, and this means hydrogen consumption, is very important in all of these fields. When we focus to the commercial vehicle area, we can see that the TCO is dominating the initial price of a fuel cell system, for example. If you have huge advantages in efficiency and a very low hydrogen consumption in the fuel cell system, this can compensate a higher initial price and the investment in the system. And these are exactly the things we are developing together with Airbus in this joint venture. So ElringKlinger actually is the partner of this joint venture, and in the future it will be EKPO, our cooperation project and our joint venture with Plastic Omnium.
Good. So I'd like now to hear from Jan Wegener from Enove, because you're financing some projects. I heard about hydrogen-powered little plane called Hy-4. Jan?
Yeah, the Hy-4 plane, it's a four-seater, which had its first flight last year in Slovenia. And yeah, we've been funding R&D, really. There are no commercial applications, of course, as of yet, but we funded a lot of R&D projects that led up to this Hy-4, this Hy-4 plane in the past. So there were few projects that we funded, so called, for example, Go4H2 or Antares, but there's also been a European project. So European funds have also been made available for this topic. I mean, we will of course keep funding this. I mean, for us, there's really no way around fuel cells and hydrogen in aviation. We are of course also looking at a few other solutions that also involve hydrogen, of course, so synthetic kerosene and so on. But I mean, the advantages of hydrogen that we see, or that we hope we can produce, are clear and have already been mentioned also by Armin. So it's just less weight, more efficiency, and a lot less energy that we need to produce the fuels for. So we'll keep going in that direction. As of today, I think we've funded, like in the two program phases that we had, 8 projects with around 62 million euros. And we'll see a larger announcement for our next project in the coming days. That's to say next week. So I would say keep your eyes and ears open.
Okay, great. Do we have any questions from the chat? So I'm just asking, no questions, my God. Well, that's it. So let's carry on now with the infrastructure. No music? Okay, so we're going to hear from several speakers again. So Jan Wegener is still with us. We'll hear from Jean-Luc Brossard from the automotive French industry. Lars Peter Thiessen also from Opel. And we'll hear also from Nicolas Ivan from H2 Mobility. So Jan, welcome back. How do you finance finally the H2 station? Because of course there's always a question of chicken and egg in the field of mobility. You need cars, but you need also stations.
Exactly. That really sums it up pretty nicely. I mean, we and our government pretty early decided to really get one initial nationwide grid of stations ready. And we are pretty close to that. So this initial grid, this basic nationwide grid with which you can reach basically any point in Germany, and hopefully you can come back after that as well, back to the station, has around 100 stations. If I'm not mistaken, we are at 90 stations right now. We financed this, as part of the European rules on these kind of subventions and financial aids. So if you want to know it exactly, it's the general block exemption regulation. And we can finance up to a certain rate. So usually it's around 40% of the station. I mean, we've started with this sort of financing more than 10 years ago. Back then, the stations were not really where they are today. So we've seen like some huge advances also in, you know, bringing down the costs and increasing the performance of the stations. And right now, I mean, the problem, the challenge is that we don't really have enough cars for this number of stations. So to make these economically viable remains a challenge. We are, of course, looking at deploying as much or as many vehicles as possible. There are financial aids for that as well. We are looking into R&D, so we have, or with our help, there has been the development of refuse collection trucks. We are very much looking forward to Opel's light-duty vans and their application in fleets to really, create more demand for hydrogen. And what can be said, though, anyway, even if the demand is not really there where we want it right now, is that this has also been sort of industrial policy and R&D. So we have really managed to together with H2 Mobility to get the know-how and to have the first experiences of how to best design the stations and so on. We're very happy to have a strong partner in that.
Okay, so we asked a question to H2 Mobility. It's a coalition in Germany with several partners from industry, road mobility. The interview has been recorded earlier, so we hear now from Nicolas Ivan about the status of the H2 network in Germany. So we're connected with Nicolas Ivan from H2 Mobility Deutschland. Hello.
Hello, Laurent.
So Nicolas, first maybe can you give us some details about this coalition? What are the members of H2 Mobility?
H2 Mobility is a joint venture. So it was founded by 6 shareholders actually in February 2015, namely Air Liquide and Linde from the gas side, and then you have OMV, Shell and Total forming a coalition from the oil and gas side, and then Daimler from the automotive side. Furthermore, we have an advisory committee where actually all the, prominently active automotive companies in hydrogen are present and represented. For instance, BMW, Audi, Volkswagen Group from the German side, and then Asian OEMs as well.
Okay, so we know that Germany is moving forward in hydrogen. What is the status today of the network for H2 stations?
So today we are approaching the finish line of our first big phase, which was to implement the first 100 stations at strategic locations in Germany. Strategic locations meaning we focused in the past years how to cover most of the country with hydrogen stations, so how to reach most drivers with a limited number of stations. And with these 100 locations, we'll reach 6 million real driving profiles. So in theory, 6 million drivers could actually step by step switch to a hydrogen car and would not need to adjust their behavior significantly. Technically speaking, those stations, the 100 stations, have a capacity to refuel the need of 40,000 cars and light-duty vehicles. And now we are about to approach the next phase. We have actually started already implementing the first projects, which is more about strengthening the network regionally, especially for the upcoming ramp-up of commercial vehicles as well and heavier vehicles.
So the stations are mainly located on highways, am I right?
It's both. So if you want to, let's say, cover a country with a limited number of stations, then of course, you need to ensure that urban mobility can happen. So we started in the 7 major urban areas which we had identified in Germany. but you also need to make sure that people can move in between these areas. So let's say drive from Hamburg to Munich if they want to. In addition to those 7 areas, we try to put stations along the most frequented highways in Germany. So it's both urban areas and then the connecting big highways.
There is a national plan on hydrogen in Germany. Is it a strong support to build the infrastructure?
The German strategy from the political side has always gone hand in hand and was well aligned with the industrial strategy. So the national strategy was there early on in 2005-06 when the big program NIP, so the National Innovation Program for Hydrogen Fuel Cells, was founded. That was also when the thoughts started about how to implement that actually from the industry side. So it has always gone hand in hand. And now we are in the middle of the phase 2 of this NIP program. And this is, of course, a big help in funding, not only the stations, but also the government is always our partner when it comes to thinking about what are strategically the right next steps.
So this is the point of view of Nicolas Ivan from H2 Mobility. I would like to hear now from Lars-Peter Thiessen from Opel. What's your opinion, Lars-Peter, on the status of the network in Germany and in other parts of Europe? Because it's very important. If you have stations, you can sell or lease some vehicles.
Yes, in fact, this is the case. And I really have to say that we strongly appreciated this initiative of H2 Mobility from early on, because they really had to overcome the chicken and egg problem. So there is an opportunity to earn money by selling hydrogen, but not for the first one. So we had to have companies starting such an initiative, because I can tell you, when we had our fleet of hydrogen 4 vehicles on the road, 30 cars between 2008 and 13, it was really absolutely frustrating for our customers, because there was just a very limited amount of stations. But moreover, the problem was that these the ones running the stations, they did not really have the customer view, which meant that with the founding of H2 Mobility, this totally changed. So not only the reliability of the stations strongly improved, but also the attitude of this organization of H2 Mobility to really take a customer point of view, meaning that these stations are open 24/7, and if there is any problem, then this is via an app. This is transferred to the customer. So the customer at any point in time, they know whether a station is up and running or not, and when it will be operational again. Because in those days I just mentioned, we very often, we ourselves, we had to drive our customers home when they entered a station and realized that it was not up and running because anything was out of order. So this has strongly improved, and it was a very, very strong achievement by H2 Mobility. So now, as said, we have a principle, I should say, nationwide coverage. But of course, this reliability is also so very important, because we have no redundancies. So it's very important, as compared with ordinary stations for ordinary fuels, where we have 12,000 in the country. It's very important that we have this level of reliability. We think that it is, of course, important to also enlarge this network of stations. And what's very important to know is, if you look at the German strategy right now that has been published in June last year, there is, when it comes to road transportation, a very strong focus on heavy duty. Everybody is talking about heavy duty transport. But it's very important that to know that from the technical aspect, these stations, these nearly 100 stations that are operational right now, they are from the refueling protocol. So technically, they are dedicated to passenger cars and light commercial vehicles. So it's very important for us that not the whole world, so to speak, now jumps on heavy duty vehicles, but that we still stay with enlarging this network, which which is currently used by drivers of Hyundai's, Toyotas, and in the future, or at starting end of the year, beginning of next year, also with our vehicles. Very important.
Thank you. I would like to hear now from Jean-Luc Brossard for the automotive French industry. So, Jean-Luc, what is the situation like in France?
And the situation in France is not at the level of what Nicolas present, but today we have already 28 stations, refueling hydrogen stations available, and we have still 10 under building. And we define what we said, a contract between private and public contract in order to have the objective in France to have around 2030 between 400 and 1,000 refueling hydrogen stations in France. And we have a lot of actors. For instance, we spoke a few minutes ago on Rainbow Unicorns, and we had Rezone, who was a project of ENGIE, was forecast to develop some refueling stations. We have also Air Liquide Total, and we're in contact in Germany with Nicolas Seb in H2 Mobility. We're in contact in Italy with Edison. So it is very important that following the scale-up of the H2 Mobility, that the infrastructure is following the same ramp-up.
Thank you. Back now to Jan Wegener from Innove. So Jan, we expected cars at the beginning, but we can see that there is a growing interest around heavy-duty mobility in buses, but also trucks. So is this a challenge to adapt the infrastructure for that kind of vehicles?
Yeah, definitely is. I mean, there are, of course, heavy-duty vehicles that you can also refuel at the conventional 700-bar retail stations that we have today. So I mentioned the refuse collection truck that was also developed with our funding. And in the end, or I mean, in general, you know, the larger the application, the more hydrogen fuel cells make sense. But if we really look at the 40-ton heavy-duty trucks, then we right now don't even really know which kind of, how the hydrogen, which pressure levels are there in the car, whether it's going to be liquid hydrogen, and this is also really still in an R&D phase. So it's a little too early to say, you know, how to retrofit the stations, or whether they should be retrofit, or whether we need new ones. If it's liquid hydrogen, we definitely need new ones. And retrofitting will always mean also, you know, increasing the volumes, because the volume of a truck is, of course, manifold what it is for passenger cars. So it's no clear answer I can give you today. I'm sorry.
No matter what. I just asked the same question to Nicolas Ivan from H2 Mobility. Here is his answer. So we get back to Nicolas Ivan. So heavy-duty mobility seems to be a very promising market. How will you welcome commercial vehicles and trucks in your stations?
Well, commercial vehicles and trucks are a big chance for accelerating the infrastructure buildup. Why? Because commercial vehicles usually bring a heavier load and a more predictable load to the stations. Whilst private customers, let's say they drive, they go on a holiday, or they drive to their office, or whatever they do, but they consume limited quantities, and they're hard to predict. If you have a truck or a bus, they usually use the same ways, the same routes every day, and they focus on a few stations. So it's a big chance for the infrastructure to make a big step towards commercialization, and that's what we are fully exploring at the moment. So all our new projects in the pipeline basically show two characteristics. First, we ensure a healthy baseload with commercial vehicles and anchor customers, let's say, in the region. And second, we try to ensure that the new station also is a good fit and a good match in terms of extending and expanding the existing infrastructure.
If hydrogen trucks are on the road tomorrow, maybe we'll have two types of fuel, gaseous hydrogen and liquid hydrogen. How to deal with those two kinds of fuels?
Well, you mentioned one of the biggest challenges at the moment. Both is thinkable. Yeah, trucks can run on liquid hydrogen or gaseous hydrogen. There can also be combination. The supply chain can be liquid, and then it can be gaseous when it goes to the tank. The important thing is that there is a clear decision within the next, I would say, 1 to 2 years, a clear decision for what's going to be in the tank. Because if there's no decision, then we will first spend a lot of money in trialing this and that in parallel, and second, we lose a lot of time on our journey to decarbonize transport. That's what it's all about. We want to be fast. We want to lower the emissions to contribute as much as possible to the climate change agenda.
Thank you, Nicolas Ivan, for being with us today. And it's time now to take some questions from the chat. So, Emmeline, do we have any questions? Okay, so there was an initial target of 400 stations in 2024. Is it still the same objective, or maybe it will be postponed? Maybe Jan Wegener can answer this. I think the answer is yes, actually.
So we, or like the government, had this target of of this number of stations by 2025, with the initial 100 stations to be built by 2020. So now we're at 90, so we are broadly on time. The H Mobility Consortium actually postulated to have these 400 stations by 2022. Right now, for the next stations, I mean, we said, regardless of the demand, we're going to build 100 stations to get to this initial network. This is basically what we've done. What we're going to do now is, of course, we're going to look at, where do we have special demands, where are fleets and so on, where can we plan with a certain demand. And that means around, 15 stations perhaps per year. We'll see how the demand evolves. It depends. But the 400 station target, it stays in place for the time being, but it was part of a European directive, or the transposition of it, rather. And this will be reformed in June, or we'll see a new proposal by the Commission, and then we'll see how to adapt these targets.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay, so it's about the sourcing of the H2 stations, or is the hydrogen produced on site, for instance with electrolysis, or do you bring the hydrogen from anywhere and put it in the station? So maybe Jan again?
Yeah, both. So we also fund, as part of our funding, on-site electrolysis. Actually get a higher funding rate for that, but that's usually not enough to serve the entire station. I mean, also, again, of course, also depends on the demand. But right now, as of now, a lot of the stations are also get their hydrogen deliveries by tube trailers. There are also other solutions where the gas would usually be vented, because there's some large industrial complex nearby which needs the hydrogen or doesn't need it, and instead of just venting it, we use the hydrogen for the cars. And in the end, we have a requirement that 50% of the hydrogen is green, and that's what H Mobility comply with.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you all. So this is the end of this session. We carry on now with another type of infrastructure for stationary applications. parler d'un autre type d'infrastructure, cette fois
we're going to talk
appliquée
about
aux
a
stationnaires.
different
On en parle
type
avec
of
Olivier
infrastructure
Artaud de
for
Storengy,
stationary
filiale de
solutions.
Engie. Bonjour, Monsieur Artaud.
So, Mr. Artaud from
On va
Storengy.
parler avec vous d'un projet de territoire
So we're
sur
going to talk about
une bande de terre,
a
on va dire,
local
qui se situe entre
territorial
la France et
project
l'Allemagne. J'ai peur de mal dire le nom, donc je vous laisserai le faire. On va
concerning
parler donc d'un projet
a French-German
qui part du local.
project.
C'est autour d'une centrale à charbon à
So
Saint-Avold,
this
et on va voir de
is
quelle
in
façon
a project
ce
that's in
projet va
Saint-Avold
finalement
in
pouvoir se
Moselle,
greffer
which
sur
is
d'autres pays, en particulier l'Allemagne et le Luxembourg.
coal-fired power
Alors,
station.
parlons d'abord et avec
So
une slide
first of
à
all,
l'appui de ce
here's a
fameux
slide
projet de
to
territoire
illustrate this
franco-allemand.
local project, which is a Franco-German project, as I said.
Alors, effectivement,
So,
comme vous le disiez, la
yes, as you
prononciation
said, the
du territoire peut
pronunciation of the local area is
difficile
a
à
bit
réaliser,
difficult.
mais c'est le territoire du Vantneborien.
This is
Et
the
ce
Vantneborien.
territoire, effectivement, qui est situé en Moselle,
Is in Moselle.
autour de la communauté de communes de Saint-Avold.
So this is around the Saint-Avold area in Moselle,
De ressources.
which is an area which has a lot of
Il y a
resources
aussi une problématique à gérer avec
and has an issue to deal with, which is the end of the operation of the coal-fired power station. And so the area, the region wanted to look for a solution for the future and has turned towards hydrogen with the idea of having a project for the power station site, which has all the infrastructures and all the utilities ready for a new industrial project to produce energy. So green energy, which is obviously what's important in the objectives of this project. But the idea is also to develop a whole industry and an ecosystem with training, etc. And that's important for Storengy to accompany the territorial authority in promoting this project. Yes, so this is called Émilie because this is based at this Émile Luchet's power station, which was named after its first manager. So we decided to use that name for the project. So that reflects the idea that it's a local project. So this has allowed us to create a project that is now starting up. It's serving the local area with hydrogen for mobility users in the local area. And that means this is an infrastructure project which will serve the area locally. It's an industrialized project, so that the market for green hydrogen is in its early stages. So, because most of the hydrogen consumed by industry at the moment is grey hydrogen. So, our idea is to ramp up production. So we're working with the local authority to develop local, urban and extra-urban mobility solutions that use hydrogen. So, using the existing infrastructure, we have the possibility of finding industrial customers so that we can set up a bigger system for producing hydrogen. So we're setting up an initial network of infrastructures, which is allowing us to join together two territories in two countries, France and Germany, across the border. So I might have mentioned this before. There is a partnership with the operator of the coal-fired power station, and this partnership has allowed us to develop this hydrogen project. So now we're capable of proposing a project. This is going to be filed submitted to the ADEME in its call for projects in March this year. This will allow us to obtain funding, and then after that, European funding. So we're also discussing a partnership with the Mosaic project, which is also a hydrogen infrastructure project. So you're working with France, Germany, and Luxembourg on this. So we're working with a transporter in Germany, which makes the connection between Germany, Saint-Avold, and then runs up the German border towards Luxembourg. So they have natural gas pipes which are no longer in use. So this network of piping will be converted to hydrogen. And we will have the Emily production site will be directly connected to this pipeline system. And we will be working with another production site 20 kilometers away on the other side of the border in Germany, so there'll be 2 production sites in the area, plus a transport system with the pipeline, plus a network of potential customers. So we will just need to add a few kilometers of pipe to connect up to this existing system. And this will allow us to exploit the green hydrogen that our production project will be producing. So this is setting up a system which will gradually become an industrial system. So we're also planning to construct a pipe between Saint-Avold and Nancy to a salt site there in Serville, near Nancy, so that we can integrate them into the project. So I know you don't have the time to stay with us for any questions because you have to leave. So now we're going to move on to the last sequence, which is about another German-French project on electrolysis. So for this last section, we have Bertrand Amelot from McPhee, and then for Antoine Aslanidis from Hynamics. So we're going to start with Bertrand. So how are you?
Bonjour.
So good morning.
Très très bien.
Very well, thank you.
Et tu vois, pour être dans le thème, la photo
que
you
could
tu
see
vois
behind
derrière
me
est à la frontière entre la France et l'Allemagne.
is the German-French
C'est un
border,
électrolyseur d'1 mégawatt.
and it's a 1 megawatt electrolyzer,
Energiedienst,
which is
sur la centrale de Vilaine. Donc,
at the Vilaine
sympa d'être vraiment dans le thème.
power station. I thought it was nice to show you that. It's a very good idea. So what you can say about McPhee, which is a small company still, an SME, but you've already had an office in Germany for a long time. Yeah, since 2013, yes. We bought out an entity in Berlin, which was called Electrac H2, and we have 25 people, and we're recruiting fast for the next few years. So you also have business partners on the 2 sides of the border. Yes, obviously we have about 10 megawatts of reference production in Germany, and we have a whole ecosystem of industrial projects, refineries, steel plants. I can't quote the names for confidentiality reasons, but we do have a mesh of interesting customers for the next 2 or 3 years. That's good. So Christelle Rouillet, who is the director of Hynamics, which is a subsidiary of EDF. which is dedicated to hydrogen. So good morning. So can you tell us about the vision of Hynamics, which is a young company? So it was created in April 2019 following a reflection by EDF with the idea of looking at the future of hydrogen. So we see it as a vector for storage and also a vector for the decarbonization of the economy in the industrial sense of the term, and particularly for industry and heavy-duty mobility. So the idea is to address these two markets, which are the two industries which emit the highest quantity of CO2. So we want to work on producing decarbonized hydrogen from renewables and water electrolysis. So obviously, to use electrolysis, you need a lot of electricity. And obviously, EDF is a big player in electricity worldwide, and that's why we see this as a possibility for growth and diversification for EDF. So obviously, we're working investors, operators, maintainers in electricity. And therefore, we're involved in the hydrogen industry. We're working in Britain, Germany, France, Belgium, Italy. And we've also started prospecting in other countries where EDF is based already. The USA, the Emirates, and China. So there are connections between Hynamics and McPhee. Yes, it's true. Yeah, so even before we created Hynamics, so it was already part of our strategy our strategy of entering the hydrogen industry. We already had contacts with McPhee. And we have shares in McPhee, we're one of their reference shareholders. And so their recent fundraising effort was a fantastic success, and it's making them it's helping them to become a major manufacturer of electrolyzers. So we have an industrial R&D and commercial agreement with them. So our idea is to help McPhee to grow and to become a big European player in their field, in the applications for electrolyzers. So we're looking forward to seeing how McPhee develops. So now Antoine Aslanides, who is the head of your subsidiary in Germany. So on the 22nd of October last year, we talked already about the German situation. So what can you tell us about EDF's activities and HIFER, their research center in Germany? Yes, EDF actually has a long history in hydrogen, which people don't really know about. So HIFER is a joint research center with the University of Karlsruhe, which is the Institute of Technology. So this cooperation has existed for 20 years. We were already, from the beginning, looking at the possibilities for hydrogen. But that's not the only thing. There's also Framatome, which has a hydrogen team in Germany with about 20 people in Bavaria. And they are an interesting partner for us because they have a very strong engineering team. So here we have a map showing you where your task forces are situated in Germany. So there you have. So Haifa in the southwest in Baden-Württemberg, Karlsruhe, Bavaria, McPhee. I consider McPhee as a precious ally. There's also Hynamics Deutschland. Last year created Hypion, which is a small company, a development company in northern Germany in a town called Heiden. So there's a very dynamic context in Germany with this 9 billion euro fund to develop the business. It's true. There are 2 billion euros of investments have been announced. We're setting up R&D projects, so we can feel that there's a very strong momentum and lots of large projects. So you have this big German machinery behind you. So how can you green these projects so that there's less CO2 emissions? It's true that hydrogen is mostly produced for the moment from natural gas. So it's an easy way of getting into the market. This is called green hydrogen, which now needs to be replaced by replace grey hydrogen, decarbonized hydrogen. So Bertrand Amelot for McPhee, you wanted to tell us about this gigafactory project. What is that? Yes, so this is a project. What do we mean by this name, gigafactory? So it's connected to what Christelle Rouillet was saying. So part of this European project to produce 40 gigawatts through electrolysis, and the plan to create a massive European value chain, so with medium-sized electrolysis platforms. So we need 4 or 5 of these platforms to, for example, for a steel plant or a refinery. So what we want is what our potential customers are saying is that you must provide it with the capacity of production sufficient to allow us to develop. We need competitive electrolysis projects. We need costs to be reduced. So we need to ramp up as quickly as possible in the medium to long term. So we also need to look at quality and security, of course. So we have a 1,000 megawatt per year factory, which we're planning. So this is a factory concept. So it's going to complete our existing factory in Italy. It's intended to be located in France, but given the growth in the market, we plan to start up in 2024, so there'll be a decision for the investment this year. So, of course, we'll be using part of the funds that we recently raised. So between 2025 and 2027, we think we can plan a second gigafactory. This will probably in Germany, but we have to look at how the market is developing. So this will involve a new concept electrolyzer to be more competitive. So Antoine, thank you, Antoine. So we've talked a lot about the BCE, the IPCE. So I'd like Bernard to say a few words about that. So this IPCEI Everybody's been talking about that over the last few weeks and months. This is a European framework. So in Germany in particular, so we're expecting the launching of a call for expressions of interest in Germany today. So this is something which is going to provide structure for the industry. So we've said that this is something that's going to be taking place at European level, but needs to begin at national levels. So at the beginning of 2020, the French began to get interested and to get active in this area. Now the Germans are catching up. So the idea is to construct a European vision of the industry. Part of the project is to decarbonize the cement production industry. So we're going to start with a 30 megawatt system which will be installed in the north of Germany, which will be a mass producer of hydrogen. So a second stage will be in France, in the Rhône-Alpes, with a company called Vicat. So this will be a system which is 10 times bigger than the first one. So this will be even bigger mass production of hydrogen. So again, we'll be trying to decarbonize a cement factory. There'll also be production using methanol. So this will be a 300 megawatt project, which allows us to produce 200,000 tons of methanol per year, which is equivalent to the French market. The second step in France is a major scale project. Then after that, we'll be moving back to Germany. We'll be producing 200,000 tons of methanol per year. That will allow us to convert a very large cement plant in Germany. So we hope that we can arrive at the complete decarbonization of the cement industry. So this is in line with what you can expect from a European project like the IPCEI. So do we have a couple of questions from the chat?
Alors, les capacités de production
capacity, what are the production capacities by electrolysis in France and Germany?
Je pense que c'est plutôt peut-être destiné à Bertrand.
I think this is more a question for Bertrand, but I think he's answered this today. I think 300 megawatts on the Italian site, 1 gigawatt on the French site planned at the moment. So that's obviously only a first phase. So obviously there will be further projects, so through Hynamics and at European level. Yes, I think our industrial ecosystem has to become a value chain. We'll be using moving towards projects involving gas separators, the electrochemical industry, and they will all be turning towards our electrolyzers at European level.
Une question pour McPhee, donc à propos
a question for McPhee about the Gigafactory. Do you have a project to build one in this region, Burgundy-Franche-Comté? That's obviously a very good question. What is sure is that it's very important to be anchored in a region where hydrogen has become a strategy. So when we're lining up our planet for our strategy, we'll be looking at national strategy, European strategy, and local territorial strategy in places like Franche-Comté, Burgundy-Franche-Comté. Obviously, you are one of the leading regions in this field. So thank you very much. We've arrived at the end of our session. So just a couple of words with our European Member of Parliament. So what do you think, what could you say about French-German cooperation? So I think we've seen that it's very rich, it's very effective, and it's obviously going to be a driving force behind the European hydrogen policy. And this is helping us to work towards carbon neutrality and the targets for 2050. So the IPCEI, which is a bit difficult to explain, but in fact it's an exemption from the rules of the the common market, which says that you can't subsidize industries, but the IPCEI allows states to give subsidies to industry. So France, in this IPCEI, which was announced in December with 22 other countries, so they were putting money into a sort of common pot to encourage the hydrogen industry. So obviously each country wants to develop its own industry. So the European institutions, the Commission, the European Parliament are also taking legislative measures to encourage the hydrogen industry. I'm the rapporteur for a group working on clean energies. I'm also vice president of the Sky Space, so we've been working with Airbus on the hydrogen plane at Commission level. So I'm also vice coordinator on the Industry Energy Commission. So we're also looking at new legislation, new texts to favor the hydrogen industry, to bring costs down. We know that green hydrogen is much more expensive than grey hydrogen. So it's almost 10 times more expensive per kilo. So we're looking at ways of bringing costs down. But we've seen, for example, in the bus industry, the cost of a hydrogen bus has been halved in just a few years. So obviously we're trying to encourage the development of the industry so that afterwards it can develop of its own accord. So it's very interesting that an organization like Vehicle of the Future is investing in this type of event to contribute to the development of familiarity and the development of the industry. So I think Madame Dufay wanted to say a few words before we finished about the Burgundy-Franche-Comté region. No, I simply say that I've found that the roundtable was very interesting. So the commitment of my region is on what we consider as a priority, and we intend to keep putting the resources into it. So thank you very much for participating in this Franco-German session, and I say goodbye to you. So I think in the future we will have regular events. So the next Hydrogen for Business for Climate will take place in September, and we hope that everybody will be able to be present that time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.